Welcome to the West Village. The West Village is currently the most expensive neighborhood in all of New York City, dethroning that of Tribeca, which held the top spot last year in 2024. And in today's video, we're going to be exploring one of the most sought-after buildings, not only in New York City, but in the entire United States of America right now. Now, for some context, we usually talk about all of the monstrous glass-encased skyscrapers that are really dominating New York City, from Central Park Tower to 157 and many, many more of the needle-thin pencil-type towers with the glass facades that have come to dominate the skyline. And that has many locals kind of outraged because they think it's eating into the architectural integrity that has made the city what it is, and that has made the city so great. Well, I got some good news for you all, because today we're going to be exploring the new 80 Clarkson Street right here in the West Village. You can actually see some of the cranes in the sky right here. The building officially topped out last month, and they are currently putting up the all limestone facade. So if you want to follow along on the video and look this project up yourself, just Google 80 Clarkson, and what you'll see is that the developers on this project were the same developers that built the limestone Jesus building at 15 Central Park West. The Zeckendorf property developers are some of the most successful in all of New York City, and oftentimes their buildings completely sell out before construction even completes. If you go all the way back to 15 Central Park West, the limestone Jesus building, the gorgeous limestone facade, the architect on that project was Robert A.M. Stern, who also went on to do 220 Central Park South. That building, in the heart of the financial crisis in 2008, was halfway sold out before the building was even completed. Okay, I'll say that again. During the depths of the financial crisis, 15 Central Park West was halfway sold before construction was even completed. So Zeckendorf is after it again with 80 Clarkson. You have the architect on the deal being COOKFOX. We'll talk a little bit about the building. It's going to be two individual towers of similar size, but they are going to be slightly different from one another. You have Tower 1 being 37 stories, I believe 420 feet tall, or about 400 feet tall. I'll have to look up the exact measurements, but number 2 is going to be 45 stories tall and stand about 490 feet in the air. So not a super tall, not, like a 220 Central Park South that is 950 feet tall, not a Central Park Tower that is 1,550 feet tall, and certainly not a 157, the glass-encased skyscraper that stands just above 1,000 feet tall. This is going to blend perfectly with the skyline of the West Village, which is technically on the border of Hudson Square, have a gorgeous cascading limestone facade, and cater to New York's ultra-wealthy. Let's first do a little bit of a walking tour around the neighborhood to show some perspective of, if you purchase a unit in this building, what your neighborhood is going to look like. We're now walking up 7th Avenue towards Leroy Street. And one of my favorite things about the West Village is that not only does it have some of the city's best restaurants, bars, and nightlife, as well as pizza places, for example, John's Bleecker and Bleecker Street Pizza, but you also take advantage of the Hudson River and Hudson River Park. You have that entire biking path that'll take you all the way down to the World Trade Center, all the way up to 125th Street Harlem if you want. Gorgeous views overlooking the Hudson in New Jersey. Tennis courts, volleyball courts, skateboarding parks, and even city wineries and vineyards right on the Hudson River. It's a very versatile neighborhood that has become so popular here in New York. I should mention that it's 100 degrees out today in New York City, quite literally. The heat index is 101 to be exact. So it is a very, very hot day. Predominantly the architecture of the West Village are these beautiful pre-war buildings that have so much rich character. Those bright red brick facades. And if we look a little bit in the distance, I'll zoom in. That is the cranes that sit atop of 80 Clarkson Street. You have the Village Tavern just to your right. This is now the corner of Bedford Street and Leroy Street. You also may be asking yourself, Tom, why does it seem so quiet in the West Village for a Friday afternoon? Well, I'll tell you why. It's the summer, and a lot of the residents who live in the West Village, who own townhomes here, who live in the luxury condominiums, they also have weekend summer homes either in the Hamptons or up in Larchmont, Greenwich, Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. So the city really empties out during the summer months on Friday evenings and Friday afternoons. So if you're a tourist and you're looking to get a great perspective of the West Village without all the hustle and bustle, might I suggest coming during a Friday or a Saturday in the summer. Now, Saturday nights do get really hopping here, but during the day, it does kind of thin out in terms of the people. Just such a stunning neighborhood here. For 80 Clarkson Street, it's not only the Zeckendorf developers who are on the project. You also have a very interesting sponsor on the project called the Baupost Group. Now, for those of you who don't know who the Baupost Group is, it's actually not a traditional real estate developer. The Baupost Group was founded by Seth Klarman. And Seth Klarman is actually one of the best and well-renowned value investors in the history of investing. I'll tell you a quick story about Seth Klarman. At one of the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meetings, somebody stood up and was asking Warren Buffett a question, as well as Charlie Munger, God rest his soul. And he said, besides you at Berkshire Hathaway, who would you recommend an investor to listen to for advice? And at the time, Warren Buffett really couldn't answer that question. He kind of stayed silent. There was an awkward pause. But then he finally gave an answer, and he said, well, I normally wouldn't recommend anybody, but if I had to, it would be Seth Klarman, or Klarman of the Baupost Group, as well as Phil Fisher, who is the founder of Fisher Investments. Now Ken Fisher, his son, runs the company. And Ken Fisher, or Phil Fisher, excuse me, wrote one of the greatest investing books of all time. It's called Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits. So I would highly, highly recommend that book to anybody interested in the investment business. But back to Seth Klarman, the Baupost Group. Seth Klarman also wrote a very, very sought after and coveted investing book called Margin of Safety. Now, I would also recommend everybody read Margin of Safety, but the problem is there was only 5,000 copies ever published of Seth Klarman's Margin of Safety. So amongst the Wall Street community, it has become one of the most sought after books to have as a hard copy. Currently online, if you look up the valuation of that book, they can go for upwards of $10,000 to $15,000 for a single copy of Seth Klarman's Margin of Safety. I am very, very fortunate. About 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, one of my clients actually gifted me an original copy of Seth Klarman's Margin of Safety. So I have one of 5,000 ever printed. Maybe one day I'll show you guys my library. I have a very, very expansive library of very rare finance books that I've been collecting since I was a teenager. In any event, so the Baupost Group as well as Seth Klarman are one of the developers on the project at 80 Clarkson as well as Atlas. So it's a trio, trifecta. The Zeckendorf developers, Seth Klarman at the Baupost Group, and you also have Atlas. We're now on the corner of Bleecker Street and Barrow Street. You have the very famous Bleecker Street pizza, which is very good. But a little bit further down Bleecker Street, you also have John's of Bleecker. We'll quickly mosey our way down. If you look downtown, you can see these sweeping views of the World Trade Center. You can see the foot traffic picking up a little bit here. If you were to continue to walk north through the West Village, you'll hit the starting place of the LGBT movement. We'll quickly walk past John's of Bleecker. I wouldn't be surprised if you see the line out the door. And we'll talk about some more interesting facts of 80 Clarkson in a minute, particularly as it relates to their parking spaces. This is the line for John's of Bleecker. This is probably about maybe a 45-minute to an hour wait. The main distinction is that you can't get slices at John's of Bleecker. You have to order an entire pizza. Since 1929, the original John's Pizzeria. Pretty cool. So you could tell it's such a lively neighborhood. And we're about a few blocks away from the Hudson River, so if you're a resident of the West Village, you can enjoy all the restaurants, all the nightlife, but at the same time, enjoying the Hudson River as well. Looks like they're filming some sort of a movie or a TV show here. Make a quick left on Cornelia Street. This is a very famous street that Taylor Swift used to live on. See how beautiful some of the homes are here. This is 35 Cornelia Street. These are just really, really stunning properties all up and down. Definitely a nice reprieve from the glass encased skyscrapers we usually talk about and walk through. Cute little outdoor dining setup here. It's like a picture-perfect view here. If you're a street photographer, you're always going to get some really nice shots. If you just walk through the West Village. This is the 23 Cornelia. This is the old residence of Taylor Swift. It's a very pretty building. And overall, very pretty street. I even like 21 Cornelia Street too. Just a very classic townhome. Bright red brick facade. So we're going to make a left right as we hit West 4th Street. And we'll head over to Hudson River Park. So the total development cost at 80 Clarkson Street is about $1.25 billion. And I think this should be close to a $3 billion sellout, maybe a little bit less. And I think it's going to sell really, really well because there's extreme high demand for bespoke luxury product. And it's quite scarce too. I think there's only going to be about 112 units total in the entire building. 650,000 interior square feet in total. And of course you will have a ground floor retail component. I'm not too sure what they're going to put in there, but it's going to be about 37,000 square feet of ground floor retail. And residents will also have the option of purchasing individual parking spaces. Right now we're on the corner of West 4th Street. You can see these really, really stunning views of Midtown Manhattan and the Empire State Building. But one thing I wanted to mention about the parking spaces is that the price points may shock a lot of people, but it doesn't really shock New Yorkers if you're familiar with the market. At 80 Clarkson Street, you will be able to purchase an individual deeded parking space for $750,000, which actually is inexpensive, and I'll sort of explain why. You may have not known this, but the vast majority of the business that I do is actually specializing in parking, selling parking garages, selling parking spaces, helping sponsors through the process of condominiumizing valet parking garages. So for some context, there's probably about 5 major parking operators in New York City that own and operate the vast majority of the garages. And it's becoming very cumbersome and very expensive to operate those businesses now. The insurance costs are through the roof, the cost of employees are through the roof. So a lot of these sponsors or valet operators are choosing to condominiumize them. So the process is you would go to an architect, you would have them draw up all the floor plans, generate the individual tax lots, and then go to the AG or the Attorney General of New York and ask for approval to condominiumize each individual unit. In which case, let's say if you're renting a parking space in New York City for $950, you would then get the right of first refusal to purchase your space, anything ranging in between $135,000 all the way upwards of, $250,000 per space if you're buying in that valet building, in which case it would turn into self-park. You would have your own space, and you would just pay the real estate taxes on your space as well as common charges. And this is a way for garage owners to liquidate the asset at a higher overall purchase price, right? So in an individual building, right, that's even an additional scarce asset. If you're going to spend $64 million for the penthouse at 80 Clarkson Street, well, you're probably going to want to have parking on site, right? So it's more valuable to you to acquire 2 or 3 spaces along with your penthouse, so you don't have to drive 2 or 3 blocks to a neighboring building and rent a parking space, right? You would get an individual deeded parking space for $750,000. This way you could have all of your vehicle assets on site, so you could either store them for cold storage if you have, luxury vehicles or exotic vehicles as they're called in New York City by a lot of the sponsors. If you have a Ferrari, Bentley, or maybe you have a Maybach or a Rolls Royce and your driver only comes to New York City when you're in town, you could just winterize the vehicle there and you don't have to worry about it. So that is becoming a very, very lucrative business in New York, and a very sought after business in New York, because chances are, again, if you're a buyer that's going to buy, an 8-room penthouse, you probably have vehicles, you probably have a car, you probably have a driver, and now you have an individual deeded space to keep your assets. This is now West 4th Street and Grove Street. Across the street is where the LGBT movement started. I would like to point out just a little bit of additional context for New York City parking if you're thinking about purchasing a space. Usually there's 2 options. It's either you can buy an individual deeded space, in which case that's a condo, and you get a deed to your property and you pay the common charges and the property taxes, or you can buy a parking license. There's 2 options. So it really depends on the sponsor, it depends on the developer. So license or a parking space, if it's not in building, they usually range from $135,000 to $200,000 per space. But if it's in your own apartment building, like at 80 Clarkson and the like, parking spaces could go upwards of $1 million a space. So $750,000 for the parking spaces at 80 Clarkson is in line with the market. So beautiful here. We'll quickly walk down Christopher Street and take a look at the Stonewall Inn. It's a very historic place in New York. You also have Jeffrey's Grocery as well. Okay, here it is, the Stonewall National Monument Visitor Center. And then I'll take you by Jeffrey's Grocery, just because it's a very famous place here in New York City's West Village. And then we will finally head and walk the construction site of the new 80 Clarkson. If vehicles aren't your thing, if you don't own any cars, 80 Clarkson also offers the availability to purchase your own wine cellar. The most expensive wine cellar you could buy at 80 Clarkson is $1 million, but they start at about $40,000 if you'd like to purchase one. Remember, when you're a big luxury real estate developer commanding $4,000 a foot in terms of those price points, you need to think about your target audience. If they could afford to pay $4,000 a foot and up, well, they probably have massive art collections, they probably have massive vehicle collections, and yes, they probably have very rare and sought after wine collections. So you need to provide those amenities to them to attract them to your project as opposed to somebody else's. Here's the Jeffrey's Grocery on the corner of Waverly Place and Christopher Street. They usually set up outdoor dining here. Oh, they have. Very nice. Yeah, usually the city blocks off this street here so patrons can have a nice meal and enjoy the weather outside. It's really quite stunning, isn't it? I always say there's nothing like New York City in the summer. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Okay, everybody, we are now going to make a left here on West 10th Street and Waverly. This is a really nice shot with that tree in the beautiful pre-war building with that red brick facade. Really quaint bookstore. We will now head towards Hudson River Park. And this is where we are going, my friends. I'll zoom in, and all the way in the distance you can see the two spires of the recently topped out 80 Clarkson. It's going to have pretty unreal Hudson River views. I really like this view looking downtown at the Village Cigars. It's a really great view. We're going to make a right on Grove Street. It's one of my favorite streets. There's so many pretty buildings there. I actually think there's one more residence that's more expensive than the $64 million penthouse. I think it's the 7,300 square foot, $75 million penthouse at 80 Clarkson. But there are entry-level units there. I believe the smallest unit starts at 2 bedrooms, around $4.9 to $5 million. 3 bedrooms, 9.7. And the median price per square foot in the building is going to be right around $6,200 a foot. I love the outdoor dining here. And when we think about who the target buyers would be for this building, obviously a lot of the Wall Street, private equity, investment banking type, but also let's not forget about the tech billionaires that live down here. Google's headquarters is literally right around the corner from that development site. And as you know, Google AI, the Gemini, and even other big tech companies like Meta with Mark Zuckerberg are offering unbelievable, earth-shattering compensation packages to AI developers. Mark Zuckerberg is reportedly through upwards of $100 million pay packages to some top talent in the AI industry. So there's a lot of very, very young and ambitious tech wealth in the neighborhood. is the beautiful Mama's 2 Pizza. Their original location, I think, is on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. That's the one that I've been to, but check out the line for this, guys, at Mama's 2. And we are in the final stretch, everybody, to Hudson River Park. Look at this line. Oh my God, look at this line. And to think people continue to say New York City is dead. People are waiting hours in line for pizza. Now, when we get to the development site, I don't think any of the limestone slabs are on the building yet. But I can't wait to see what it's going to be like when the facade is fully finished, because if you've ever walked the Upper West Side, especially past 15 Central Park West, they did such a great job on that. And fun fact, not a lot of people know this, but Robert A.M. Stern, who was the architect on 15 Central Park West, made sure that all of the limestone that was used to encase the facade of the building was cut from the exact rock quarry, which is in Indiana, that was used to build the Empire State Building. So a little bit of New York nostalgia there. So the next time you walk past 15 Central Park West, that Zeckendorf building and the Robert A.M. Stern building, just think that the limestone you're looking at is the same limestone that's on the Empire. Pretty cool. We are. Those are the tops of the development. That's where we're headed. Now, as you know, a lot of people in the community tend to be very upset when developers come in and solely build ultra luxury condominiums because there is an affordability crisis in New York City. So oftentimes there's a little bit of a quid pro quo between New York City and the developers to say, hey, we'll let you build this luxury product, but you also have to allocate either a portion of the building or launch a separate project close in the neighborhood and dedicate it to affordable housing. And that's exactly what they've done here for this project. This is now Greenwich Street. Look at that. That's such an amazing shot. In any event, check out this picturesque view of the World Trade Center. If we have time, we'll actually walk by the affordable housing project, which is not what you're thinking of. It's very, very nice. But it's at 570 Washington Street. You could do your own research on this, but the Zeckendorf developers and Seth Klarman at Baupost Group are building, I think it's around 17 stories, maybe 175 to 180 affordable housing units, predominantly targeted towards seniors, I believe, at 570 Washington Street. And the facade actually looks pretty great too. So it was sort of like a quid pro quo between the developers, Baupost, Zeckendorf, and the city to say, we'll let you build 80 Clarkson, but you also have to allocate affordable housing close by. I'm not sure the exact statistics for the income requirements, but it's usually something like 50% or less of the median income in the neighborhood. Oh man, is that a good view from Christopher Street? We have the World Trade Center and 80 Clarkson in one shot. Could you imagine once that limestone facade is fully on, how amazing that view is going to look? It's incredible. And now we can see the Hudson River in the distance. Gorgeous. I'm kind of starting to feel the temperature cool off a little bit the further we get towards the river. If you're even more interested in New York City real estate development, if you do some research on the other major projects that we've talked about on the channel, particularly the Billionaires Row ones, you'll also simultaneously see those developers like Extel building affordable housing units in other boroughs as sort of like a quid pro quo for the developers in the city, which I totally understand, by the way. Like, I feel like I'm reasonable about this, and I understand the community's concern, because if we're only just building for the ultra wealthy, that's going to push a lot of regular average New Yorkers out of these neighborhoods that oftentimes they built. So to have that balance between affordable housing and ultra luxury, I think is a pretty good match. But not to get too political, a lot of the problems that we have in New York City have been self-inflicted, particularly around a lot of the zoning restrictions and the like. But I want to cross the Hudson River here, just so we could see a view of 80 Clarkson from the other side. I want to welcome you all to Hudson River Park. My gosh, this place is amazing. Here's the bike path that I was talking about earlier. You got to make sure you're watching on this bike path. Some of these cyclists are sociopaths. I mean, I love all my cyclists, but some of you guys have a few screws loose, like we all do, but... And there we have it, the fully topped out 80 Clarkson. From this angle you can clearly tell the size difference of the two towers. You see the first one, 37 stories, 400 feet tall, and then you see the other one, which I believe is 450 feet tall. You can see people sunbathing, enjoying the day, trying to cool off. If you follow this bike path all the way down, it'll reach you at Brookfield Place. But I'll give all of you a little bit of a tip. If you want something fun to do in New York City this summer that's also free, at Pier 26, they have free kayaking. So if you go there, you can kayak in the Hudson River, and it is really, really fun. I did that just last weekend. And then, of course, across the river you can see Hoboken, New Jersey. And then in a little bit, we'll be able to see Jersey City. Another thing I forgot to mention about this development is that about 80% of the units have private outdoor space, and that's due to the setbacks of the units, which you'll see a little bit clearer as we cross the street. And I think that's such an amazing thing to do, because not a lot of new development buildings have outdoor space anymore, or a very scarce portion of the buildings, or scarce portion of the units have outdoor space. I mean, especially if you're right on the Hudson River, don't you want to be able to hang out on your balcony, enjoy those sunsets? I know I would. Ooh, this is a treat, everybody. They're just starting to put up the gorgeous limestone facade. Look at that. I would say the bottom third of the building has that limestone all over it already. Just an absolute stunner of a building. Let me zoom in on that limestone. I don't even think we had time to talk about the amenities of the building. Now, the amenities are going to include a fitness center, a pool, a spa with hot tub and cold plunges, an exclusive residences-only lounge, children's play area, landscaped outdoor terraces, 2 roof gardens, and a covered, it's going to be like a motor yard, which is like a kind of like a courtyard. It's going to have like this massive sphere-shaped sculpture on it. Here we have it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you prefer the limestone facade, or you just prefer all glass? It's a little bit noisy right on the highway, but they're saying that they expect to complete construction in December of 2026. So 1 more year and this thing's going to be complete. Now, Pier 40, you're right across the street, and Pier 40 is a lot of fun. You have soccer fields there, a lot of activities. I think you even have golf. And here's a little bit better rendering of what it's going to be like. Oh, this is that free kayaking I was telling you about, by the way. Wow, my gosh. See, now that is a good looking building. Let's go ahead and walk around the perimeter. Oh wow, we could see even more of that limestone here. Look at that, guys. And those windows are tremendous. I mean, the ceiling heights here are probably going to be maybe 12-foot ceilings. Those look like floor-to-ceiling glass windows. This is probably going to be the main entrance to the valet garage. Like I said, parking spaces here, you could purchase your own individual deeded parking space for $650,000, which is actually a good deal, especially if you're buying the $75 million, $80 million penthouse here. You're going to want spaces, and there's no parking in the West Village, let me tell you. We'll have to come back here and do another walk a little bit later to keep tabs on the construction progress. And beautiful World Trade Center views there too. Again, 2 bedrooms start around $4.9 million. Price per square foot around $5,500 to $6,200 a foot. And the larger penthouses are asking $63 million, $75 million, and $80 million respectively. So if you enjoyed that walking tour of New York City's West Village and an exclusive look into the new Zeckendorf and Baupost Group new development at 80 Clarkson Street, limestone facades are back in play, my friends. Adding great diversity to New York City, keeping up that architectural integrity and that limestone. Hit the like, subscribe if you're new, and as always, we will see you in the next one, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.